The where state clause. The where statement is actually used to restrict or filter data. Now, the where statement is a conditional statement. What happens in a where statement is that you provide some sort of a condition which needs to be met. And these conditions are kind of like where x equals to some value. And if that value matches, then only the result set is shown. Or if that condition comes out to be true. Now this x could be any column name. It could be the first name. It could be, for instance, the phone number. It could be, for instance, the ID field. So you'll use a where clause, and you'll add the column name over here, and then you will say it needs to be equal to something, or it needs to be greater than something, or so on. You can apply different comparison operators within SQL, within a where clause. These are the different comparison operators which you can add. For now, they're inside the where clause. You can have less than equal to, or less than, or greater than, or less than equal to, greater than equal to. And the way to write not equal to, you have two different methods. Either you can actually use two signs, which is a less than and a greater than, and you can combine them together, or you can actually use an exclamation mark right before the equal to sign, and that is going to actually tell SQL that this is a not equal to. We have to use comparison operators with the where statement in order to limit the rows returned in the result set. So if you have 500,000 rows, for instance, and you only want the rows where some condition is being met true, then it's actually better to use a where statement and get only that data. For instance, Company X wants to know which customers have bought product A. Now, what they can do is they can go into the sales order table and they can eventually get all the sales. Or they can restrict the data where they can say where product ID or product name is equal to XYZ. And in this case, when they eventually define this inside the where clause in SQL statement, in a SQL statement, what's going to happen is it's only going to bring the data which is required. We're going to take some examples of this, and let's go and based on different conditions, we're going to apply this. But there's some other syntax rules which we need to eventually be cautious of. And one is that with numeric base, like numbers, we do not use quotes. But whenever you're actually doing comparison operators against the character base, you need to put the data in some sort of single quotes. And these are the single quotes which has been counted. So, for instance, if you're looking for first name equals to John, what you need to do is you need to actually put it in single quotes. Well, if you're looking for instance, salary and equals to 1,000, you don't really need to put in single quotes. So, for instance, if you're just defining a salary and you want all the employees where salary is equal to 5,000, you don't need to actually put in a single quote because it's a numeric field. But with character-based fields, what you need to do is you need to eventually add single quotes before in the comparison operator. So for instance, we talked about name. So if name, and just going to write it over here, if name equals to, if I add equal to, and if I add comparison operator where I have to say its name is equal to John, what I need to do is I need to add the single columns, single quotes, and then I can only do a comparison. This is a standard SQL syntax, and it needs to be followed whenever you're writing SQL statements.